Welcome to TechieCast Jax. Joe Holbrook here with Tech Commanders. Today I have Max Garcia here who will be providing some insight about cloud roles and his sort of thoughts on those roles. And let's go ahead and talk about what the top 5 are. And I'm going to give you some experience as well in some of these roles in the past. Some of them I've worked, some of them I've also taught as well. So there's a lot of things as a coach that you run into, and also as a pre-sales architect was really my main focus early on in my career, and Unix as well. For those that are familiar with Unix, that dates back a little bit. But I wanted to really just focus on what I have been seeing. And in the description of where you're viewing this podcast or listening to it, there'll be a link for the post that's on the gcpgurus.com. So let's talk about the top 5 cloud computing roles that are currently sort of in demand according to what I have found on Indeed, LinkedIn, and also Glassdoor. Now, for those looking for a new role, looking to get into a new role, those are probably the best sites to at least start looking. Now, when it comes to looking for a role, just be aware that if you want to be a cloud architect, chances are when you search for a cloud architect, it's probably going to pop up pretty easily. On the other hand, if you want to be more of a DevOps engineer, sometimes those roles can be more of a hybrid role. But I want to talk about some of the more important roles that I see right now that are in high demand. So the first one, when we consider a role in the cloud, would be the cloud architect. Now, a cloud architect is going to be that IT professional, that cloud professional that is going to be able to listen to customer requirements or to even enterprise requirements and be able to translate those requirements from basically where that customer or enterprise is into a design that deploys cloud in a manner that actually provides value and actually solves whatever problems are at hand. Now, be aware too that a cloud architect definitely needs to know about cloud, be very strong in that area. But one of the things that a cloud architect should also be very familiar with is the ability to talk intelligently about networking. Now, we're talking mainly about IT networking fundamentals, like what is an IP address, what is routing, what is, for example, in the world of networking, what is the edge, right? That's a common term we hear about lately quite a bit, right? Edge networking. IoT is another thing that we're running into quite a bit. Now, Max, did you know that according to, and again, this is interesting because I have found some of the salaries to be sort of like a little bit higher than what I have been seeing in real life. But again, maybe there are people that can command that kind of money. But generally with cloud architects, it's saying that the range is going to be, and again, we're talking about someone too, these salaries are based on someone with 2 years experience, 2 to 4 years experience, can be looking at $150,000 to $260,000 a year. So Max, what do you think of that salary range? Is that a pretty good salary range from your experience with cloud people?
It is. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of cloud architecture. Believe me, it is. The cloud architecture is under pressure, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not easy like Joe mentioned it. He knows to know all the platform at the same time, and he make a mistake, he's on the bench. So definitely it is the cloud architect is the more key skills for a project. The first thing project manager will look for is a cloud architect, mandatory, because he will know how to start the project, what resources that you need, how much your project is going to cost. But definitely the skills is available, and I know people it's available here in Jacksonville, believe it or not. There is a lot of cloud engineers, especially in the hospital care business. As I mentioned before, they're planning to build downtown data center for those all those hospitals, centralize everything. It's going to be a great opportunity for a person that has the architect cloud.
Okay, interesting. So as far as salaries, it sounds like that range is more than reasonable, right?
Yeah, it is reasonable.
Okay.
It's reasonable.
Even in Jacksonville?
Even in Jacksonville, because believe it or not, like I said, Jacksonville, believe it or not, is attracting a lot of technical business here. And the break of taxes is unbelievable.
Exactly.
So that's
a business owner, I appreciate the very low taxes, and not to mention the personal no tax income there. So
correct.
So it has personal income. So that's great. All right. So Max, number 2 would be the cloud engineer. So now again, a cloud engineer is going to be typically more technical, more hands-on than a cloud architect. The cloud architect is more holistic, whereas the cloud engineer is more deep dive into the individual technologies. And cloud engineers generally, of course, need to also be able to do a lot more than just cloud, right? They generally need to also, and again, from my experience working with Google Cloud quite a bit, you're going to need to know YAML. You're going to need to know some low code or no code in a lot of cases. And you may have to actually code as well. So there's going to be some scripting, especially if the company that you're working with is going to require some level of basically automation, infrastructure as code or service, right? So this is something routinely that we see. So the salaries that we have here for a cloud engineer is between $125,000 and $180,000 a year. Not a bad salary range, right?
No, definitely it's not. Indeed, on that side, on the technical side, he needs to get a lot of scripting experience. PowerShell,
yes.
Big time. PCLI, they need to download the special key. But people that know the PCLI is scripting that allow you to virtualize the environment very quickly, and they need at least they need for one have the experience at least 2 or 3 years.
Yes,
definitely. It's and also coding. It is if you are coding, believe me, you're gonna be in there on that team. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's definitely engineering on that. It will look for coding. It is you need to love it. It's a black screen, by the way. It's 24/7, but indeed it works beautiful when they do the projects and make it live.
Okay, interesting. So as you see, right, the contrast between a cloud architect and a cloud engineer is significant. Now, cloud architects, don't get me wrong, have to be technical, but one thing too I didn't mention about a cloud architect is I like to refer to them as more of the pre-sales type of role, where you have to be holistic. You have to be really good with people too, because when you're in the middle of a design and architecture, that architecture, you have to not only listen to the stakeholders, but translate that into a design. And you really need to be good with people. You really can't be that person that is really what I would call more introverted per se, because of the fact that you have to really communicate well as a cloud architect a lot of the times. And as a cloud engineer, you're more into the code, as Max was saying, right? You're more into that screen, whereas a cloud architect isn't going to be putting together basically cloud formation scripts or anything, at least not from my experience. So,
no, it's not. Definitely, it's more the build up the diagrams and sell it to the project manager and to the shareholders if it's going to be suitable for them.
Exactly. And the next one in list is a cloud DevOps engineer. Okay. So a DevOps engineer is really a relatively new role in the world of technology per se.
Correct.
So DevOps itself really got its foundation from really having to deal with issues from production to development. And so that collaboration had to come about. And the history of DevOps is sort of interesting. But in a nutshell, a DevOps engineer is really concerned about three things. And the first thing is really about making sure that that cloud application is deployed on a container microservices infrastructure and is actually going to be deployed down that pipeline and is going to meet the requirements of that organization. Now, one of the things, too, about a cloud DevOps engineer is that there's a lot of course, automation as we would be expecting, but there's a lot of problem-solving skills, because what can happen, especially in the world of Kubernetes and Docker, right, any other mesos, you name it, is that application may need to scale up, may need to scale down. Well, the challenge is that things can go wrong. Things, for example, may have been overlooked. Maybe, for example, as well, when it's going down that pipeline, and for those not familiar with a pipeline, that's really more of a term that is DevOps, development focused, and it's really about describing the structure about how software is actually developed and then rolled from basically development to QA to test, etc., to production. So there's a lot of approval processes. A lot of it's automated now, right? We have our CI/CD that we have to deal with in the world of DevOps. But in general, the DevOps engineer is very highly paid. Now, the range that was sort of the outcome of my research was really between $130,000 and $190,000 a year. That actually sounds a little bit lower because I've seen a lot of roles with DevOps actually somewhat higher, like $240,000 to $250,000 a year. But again, a lot of those roles are where they're in San Jose or New York, typically where the higher salaries are. But of course, you do have that cost of living. And a lot of companies, funny because, short little story here, I was interviewing with a company called Palo Alto Networks, and the salary that they had on their basically their website was this.
Right.
Well, because I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, they said, well, we have tiering in the salary was a term I think that she had used. And so after going through a couple initial phone screens, they're starting to talk about salary. And I said, well, I don't understand. The role was from here to here. And there's, well, that's true if you lived in California. Well, apparently, if you live in Jacksonville, Florida, they don't want you to have any kind of a good deal. So you cannot actually take advantage of an extra $40,000, $50,000 a year, because you live in a low-cost state. So shame on you for not living in California. So that was really a thought. So apparently, they really did need someone that was going to require a higher salary if they felt like they could find someone, that they could pay cheaper. That was really, I thought, the approach that they used. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, it is true, though. Yeah. I got a couple of contracts, people that work on contracts on that. They offer some salary. You move in here, the living cost is lower. Of course, they make the skill range completely different.
Exactly.
And also, but the skill set is, like I said, Joe, is the containers. The reason why you have to understand that technology. It needs to be do the test, dev, and then production. Because then you need to basically look for the hatch, any vulnerability before deploy. Because you don't want deploy an application on cloud if you have defects on production. So you need to have tests, dev, and the last part is production.
Yep, exactly. And one of the last roles to talk about is a cloud security engineer. This is a really important role, and those salaries, again, are pretty good. Now, security is really what I would call more of a specialization. Not a lot of people really like to deal with policies. They really don't enjoy compliance. They really don't enjoy IAM, right? For me, I'd rather be unemployed than do that all day. It would just be my thoughts, right? Now, again, this is a niche area, but if you're into that area, you could be looking at, 200 plus salaries as well. And if you are really specialized in the financial sector, I noticed that those salaries are higher as well than that. So if you're a CISSP and you want to get into cloud, for example, probably the start you want to get if you want to be a security engineer in the cloud to really get the CCSP, that's the Certified Cloud Security Professional. If you have that cert, that's a really big deal as well. I've noticed it seems like a lot of companies look for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's, that position, that certificate open doors because you'll be able to sign in the blueprints. If there's somebody have that level, they present you with the blueprints. And it is very skillable. Besides, you need to be very tech, but at the same time, personality is important in there because you're gonna deal with the shareholders and the CEOs and decide what policy they're gonna apply. Some policies that they use because as a professional, they wanna say, hey, we've been using this for 4 years, but I'm here, I'm the professional. And I'm telling you, you need to put that policy in place. Otherwise, you're going to have multiple holes, and then you're going to pay it off. Because, if you don't protect yourself, you're going to be out it, and then it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Right, exactly. Yes, so security is so important nowadays, but the cloud is still really the top area. And for those looking to get the cloud, again, be aware that there's a lot of different areas you can specialize in, and my best advice for you is to really look at what you enjoy and where you really want to get started. And what I mean by that is try to focus generally first, and then over time become a specialist. So go get that AWS cloud certification, that Cloud Foundation certification from Google. I think it's called the Digital Leader, right?
Correct.
Or Azure Fundamentals, right? Whatever cloud you want to focus on, start with that first. But also consider getting a solid coach. That's really important as well, especially if you're newer to the cloud, trying to understand all of these possibilities, areas of focus. There's a lot of noise out there. That's the challenge. But with that said, I wish you the best of luck in your cloud careers. And if there's anything we could do, reach out to techcommanders.com. And for those interested in this article, check out the GCPgurus.com. But with that said, thank you, Max, for joining.
Thank you.
And
appreciate
definitely
that.
Reach out to Max Garcia if you have any questions as well. He's on LinkedIn, correct?
Correct, LinkedIn.
And definitely reach out to him if you have questions. If you're in the Jacksonville area looking for work, reach out to Max. He may be able to help you as well.
Yes, I'll be able to help you out with any project that you might have. Any resources that you might need, I'll be able to help you out.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your kindness.
Yeah. Thanks for joining TechCast Jax. Have a great day.